All right. Well,
Okay. It's time to do the podcast.
ba-da-da-da-da-da.
I think it's your turn to do the podcast.
It is. It is. So, as you know, this is the Measure of an Episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek. And I got nothing on this one. Do you have anything? And not just good or crappy TV?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the OG,
Right?
you know.
Yep.
And I'm Paul, and the criteria by which we judge these episodes, number one, is there science fiction inherent to the plot? Number two, is that science fiction unique or novel in some way? And number three, is there a moral or ethical dilemma? I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan. And do you want to try to tell us what the blurb is? Or do you want me to read what the blurb is?
Let's see how well the old dictation happened. This week we watched Picard Season 3, Episode 5, Imposters. And the blurb is, caught by Starfield and Jason Court-Martial. Paranoid grows as Picard struggles to uncover whether Weather in Prodigal Crewman from his past has returned as an ally or as an enemy hell bent on destroying them all. It's close enough.
Right. It would have been great if it said on destroying them all.
Well, some malls suck now, you know?
We have no malls here anymore. We have, I think, 2, 3.
Well, they have some in Scottsdale now. I have a couple that popped up, right?
Well, yeah, but there was the Great Recession and just inflation and everything has destroyed the mall experience. So Metro Center, which was the mall for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, that shut down about a year ago.
Well, Genghis Khan destroyed most of it, so that doesn't.
They just never came back from that. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Star Trek. So I have to say right off the bat, I think this might be the best Picard episode yet.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think that this really hit the mark in a lot of different ways. It wasn't great, I guess. It wasn't an amazing episode.
Sure.
But I liked a couple of things I liked. Let's go. This is the best way to do this episode, is to talk about the things we like, right?
I mean,
everybody loves it.
I know, it's the best kind of podcast, yeah, where we just sit here and praise the episode.
But there are a lot of really popular episodes where that's all they do.
Mm-hmm. You mean podcasts?
Yeah, sorry, podcast, yeah. Where it's just a love fest for 45 minutes.
Right.
So boring. So boring.
Well,
but that being said...
and then Ro appeared, which was neat.
Yeah. Good to see Ro again.
Yeah.
I thought it was a well-crafted episode, though. I felt like... I'm trying to, I feel like the pacing was great. I felt like... I was expecting, based on a little thumbnail in Paramount Plus, that it was just going to be a Worf episode, because last episode was just a Titan episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just going to be Worf and Rafi the whole time. And I was like, oh, prepare to fast forward. And it felt like it didn't do that. So it was nice that it jumped back and forth. It had kind of epic pacing, which I liked. Again, with the Nolan-esque pacing where there's no real scenes. It's just everything is kind of bleeding into the next thing. It's all just moments patched together in a good way. Thought it was great. Except dream sequences. I don't like dream sequences. I think we've had enough of the strange Jack weird possession thing that seems to be happening.
Right.
And I'm done with that being a mystery now. I feel like we've had a whole episode now where we're getting a little glimpse into what exactly is happening. And I'm ready for some answers, because they've ended now 2 episodes, the previous one and this one, with weird stuff happening to Jack, right? Or big bomb drops with Jack.
Well, yeah, this one was like he didn't know, and he thinks there's something seriously wrong with him that he's telling his mommy.
Yeah. They crafted that scene really well because it made it feel very creepy.
Yes.
And portending a portent of things to come.
Mm-hmm.
and I liked it. I felt like they were making something out of the performances that wasn't there with the music and the push in. Like they may have even done kind of a fabricated push in, like a zoom in, where they do it later. They didn't like do it on the day.
Right.
But I liked it. I don't like the dream sequences. Like I hate dream sequences in anything. They never work for me. It always feels like a crutch. It always feels like you're trying to communicate something that is important, but you can't figure out a way to do that in the regular narrative of the episode or the movie or whatever. So you kind of, everybody has a dream where anything can happen. That's the thing, is that anything can happen in a dream. And so you are not shackled by any rules of storytelling when they have a dream. And so it just is. And then all of a sudden they wake up, it's like, oh, there we go. And it's also a great way to create a great/terrible way to create tension. Because I think we immediately knew when he showed up on the bridge in the beginning and started shooting people that this probably isn't real. I thought it might be real for a second, but now it didn't make sense. It's like, why would this happen now?
Right.
Although,
once they were all dead, it was like, I feel like this is a dream. Yeah.
It did. I mean, it did kind of resonate when he put on, later in the episode, where he put on the Star Trek uniform. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, maybe he was telling the future.
Right.
But that did not happen. But I think we were supposed to think that. I think that was a red herring / just false head fake kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't like them. No more dream sequences.
So does it piss your shit off even more when they have dream sequences back to back like they did in this episode?
Did they have? Were they back? Oh, were they back to back with Jack? Did this just turn into a Dr. Seuss book?
I will have dreams back to back
with Jack.
So yeah, when he went like near the end when he did the transporter and they all beamed off just fine, and then like they were screaming in agony, and then it goes back to him and they all beamed off just fine, and then he was like, "Please take me anywhere," and he's like, "No," so he just shoots him. And then it flashes back again, and he's like, okay.
Since this whole season is kind of this weird reference to Star Trek First Contact, the movie, and they do that in Star Trek First Contact. Actually, the very first thing we see is a double dream, a dream and a dream. It's where Picard is sort of visualizing himself as a Borg, and it does this really epic pull out from a Borg cube, and then Picard wakes up, and then he goes to the hand basin, and then he sees the thing happen, and then it happens again.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to let it slide because it worked then. But I feel like that had context because we knew why Picard was having these dreams. Because he was a Borg. I'm sure he has them often. I think the idea from that whole movie was that he's very tortured by his experience with the Borg.
Right.
And of course, it's later communicated to us that maybe the reason he was having these dreams is because they're getting closer. The Borg are getting closer.
I was going to say, I think that the double dream was kind of implying that the hallucinations or the whatever that's happening to Jack is getting worse, and that's why it was doubled up like that. And with you saying not only what you just said, but also what you said previously, that sounds so great. With you talking about how like it might have been implied that it was because she was getting closer, but also that this episode in this season is kind of rhyming with First Contact. I think it might imply that whatever Jack is feeling is not only getting worse, but it's getting worse because whatever's happening is getting closer.
That is kind of the implication, although it was our first glimpse into Jack's inner mind kind of thing. And it's unclear if this is happening to him all the time,
right,
or if it just started happening. That's the thing. I'm kind of done with it being a total mystery. I feel like we need some clarity now for this to start making some sense. Otherwise, it's just a lost episode.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I thought that the voice that was saying, "Come save me," or "Come find me," or "We miss you, Jack, come home," whatever they're saying, I
need
thought
to go
that
on
was
the voyage home.
Yeah, I thought that was Vatic or Vatic. Vatic? Is that her name?
Do you have subtitles on?
No. What does it say?
Beverly.
What?
I know.
It's just she's just communicating with her.
Right, she still has the implant. She still has the implant that she had with Picard, and she just put it in Jack's, the back of his brain.
Or she's just off screen whispering. Mom, you have your own room.
She's planted comm badges everywhere.
I wonder if that's actually Beverly, or if that's just bad captioning. The captions aren't always correct.
Right. I have to assume that it is bad captioning, just because captions usually do not care about giving away spoilers.
Well, and they're done by the same people who do the Netflix blurbs. And so you never know. It's like, who's the last person I saw on screen? Beverly. Well, it must be her. So type that in.
Right. And, oh my gosh, there are so many times where, like, it's like, come on, man, use context to figure out what they're actually saying. There's so many times where it's just, like, phonetically spelled out, kind of like what you just did with the blurb.
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes they don't even say anything. I got the impression like, oh, did it skip a whole section of dialogue? And I thought, no, they just didn't understand it, didn't want to go back. They're typing them in real time and don't have time.
Yeah, I mean, if you get paid per hour, you know, or you get paid per episode, like, nope.
Yep, nobody cares, and nobody's watching them. You think somebody's quality controlling this shit? There's no way.
Right. All of it? Yeah, no, that's not happening.
There's no way, yeah. So there's a point where they say, Starfleet is coming to pick you guys up, and I turned you in, so get your bullshit story right. I thought that was great. Once again, Captain Dickhead is my favorite character on the show.
Saves the day.
Yeah. But it was funny. It was like, I had to really think about, why did Picard and Riker hijack the Titan? Like, what got us here? Why are we here right now? It's like, oh, right, Beverly and Jack. I totally forgot. I felt like it was so convoluted, which is kind of fine. We're only in episode 5, and all of a sudden, and so much has happened that I forgot about it, which is great. I love that. I love that that's how I felt. But I had to really think about it because they hadn't talked about it. I totally forgot that Beverly and Jack were supposedly in mortal danger, and they had to come through. And they were. They were.
Speaking of which, Ro accuses them of treason. Can you have treason when there's not a country involved?
I guess they might define treason differently in the code of conduct of Starfleet or whatever. I'm sure that they have their own version of it.
Because, I mean, it was definitely mutiny. Like, they took over the ship.
Yeah, but they weren't acting against Starfleet. I guess they were disobeying orders, but that's not immediately mutinous or treason. Plus, everybody does that all the time, apparently, in Star Trek. It's okay to do.
As illustrated by Strange New Worlds.
And as illustrated by Captain Dickhead talking to them and talking to Riker and Picard in the turbo lift, where he just recounted a bunch of stuff from the movies.
Right.
And all good things. I had to look up what the Devron system was.
Yeah.
I was like, why is that familiar? What episode is that from?
Mm-hmm.
And they chose, one of the most epic episodes.
Right.
So I liked it.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, normally that kind of fan servicey stuff, I don't care about.
Oh, you're talking about that moment. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent. Sorry to go off on a tangent. What were we talking about?
It's okay. I thought you were talking about like just the episode in general. You're like, I feel like I liked it.
No.
Yeah, just that moment.
No, just that moment.
Yeah.
You were saying about Ro. Oh, and the treason / mutiny. Yeah, I think that her whole demeanor and behavior, I felt like, was explained to us mathematically why she was that way. But once you kind of backtrack into every scene before, we learn that Ro is mad at Picard and Picard is mad at Ro. Mm-hmm. By the way, as an aside, I always thought the contention was between Riker and Ro, not Picard and Ro. Unless they're talking about something that happened after the show. Why am I rhyming all of a sudden this episode? Am I remembering that wrong? Or I thought it was always Riker.
Riker took issue with her from the beginning, but I think it's pretty accurate that Ro and Picard was kind of trying to help her understand the value of Starfleet.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember. I remember that there was like maybe some sexual tension or
always.
Something. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I feel sexual tension between me and Riker all the time, so can't imagine it working with him.
So we're not there yet, but it came out, and I just had to see how good it was. There is a moment in the Lower Deck Strange New World crossover episode where Boimler climbs onto something, and to do so, he kind of saddles it like a horse, and as he does, he goes, Riker.
Why does he say Riker?
Because of the Riker maneuver, how like Jonathan Frakes would always swing his leg over the chair that he was about to sit down on.
Right. Got it. Yeah, I can't wait for that. You should not be spoiling it for yourself.
Well, again, like being Strange New Worlds and the idea that it's all episodic, which this episode was, I felt like it was okay to cheat a little bit.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
I was excited for it.
I know, you can't help yourself. You're one of the kids that ate both marshmallows, aren't you?
No, I waited.
I don't believe you. I do not believe you.
There wasn't a bigger payoff for this. Like, if there's a bigger payoff, I'll happily wait.
Well, I guess they always got them. No, they get more marshmallows if they wait.
Yeah, they got one marshmallow. If like they said, you can eat this marshmallow now, or you can wait until I come back with another marshmallow. But if you eat this marshmallow, you don't get the other marshmallow. And so I would wait.
Yeah, the whole Ro thing I felt was the coolest cameo thing so far. Because it's kind of a cameo, right?
Yeah. Oh, it totally is.
Yeah.
And
you don't like it?
Yeah, no, keep going.
You don't like
keep
it?
Going.
Okay. I felt like they had, once again, there's like, they try and rehash backstory, which is okay. I liked that they handled that in the first scene where they're in the conference room. But then they have a whole other scene. I mean, the goddamn holodeck. It's like, you guys have a holodeck? Yeah, let's go in there. Like, why is that the go-to place?
The way I took that is because it has a standalone engine, and like, I just assumed it was kind of a little bit more private than, and it wouldn't be monitored as heavily. But it's like its default setting is that bar.
And I think a lot of this is that so Patrick Stewart can, bang out a bunch of scenes with a bunch of characters in an afternoon, without having to leave anywhere. But I felt like when they had another scene hashing out backstory, it just got a little laborious. And I know that they handled a lot of stuff that's happening. It just felt like where it's two people in a room talking.
Right.
It didn't feel like it just crashed the momentum. Is grinded to a halt. And I wanted there to be more momentum in this episode because they so had it. They so had everything going for it. Like where it was just jumping from scene to scene to scene. It was so good. And then there's the bar scene where they're just sitting in the room talking.
It feels like they had a story, again, for like 4 episodes, maybe 6, just keeping it really tight. And the contract was for 10 episodes. And so they decided to fill in these moments. And so this is my grievance with Ro. I thought everything was great with Ro. It was a nice little callback. It was kind of nice closure for her. They guaranteed that we never have to worry about her again because she is dead now. But like that's the part that kind of irritates me is, this either should be like just full on nods and winks, closures to all the episodes that were left dangling, or don't do it. Because I feel like, by introducing Ro, having those conversations, and then killing her off, it's great for everybody who wants to know what happened with Ro. But then there are all these other dangling threads where like Picard is done. So they're not going to resolve all these other things that happen in Next Generation, which I feel like is just going to fan the ire of fans. That was very poorly phrased. Allow myself to introduce.
I heard you panic. I heard the panic.
Yep.
In between fans.
Between two fans. Yeah, so just the fact that they're resolving some things but still leaving others dangling, and kind of knowing that they're never going to get to those, I feel like is just go big or go home. That's kind of my thing, all or nothing.
Yeah, it did feel like, so this actually did feel like a literate Star Trek episode in the sense of who Ro is, what the character was, and I guess what we would expect there to be in exchange. Because Ro never really had big episodes. The biggest one was where she and Geordi ostensibly die, but they're just sort of out of phase, that kind of thing. That to me was the biggest Ro episode that I can remember. But she never had plot episodes. She was always sort of this character who was a wild card and kind of a rebel.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that they handled that well in the sense of this is the Ro. Like I never got the sense that this was the same actor who played Ro playing a different character in the same makeup.
Mm-hmm.
It was felt like Ro.
Yeah.
Which
I got that.
Yeah. And I agree with you, but I think that they're doing their cameos, quote unquote cameos. They're trying to space them out, and they're trying to make them so they don't have to be main characters all of a sudden, because it's getting crowded, right? Like if Ro was going to have a 2 or 3 episode arc, then in the next episode, whoever shows up, now it's super crowded. So I understand why they're just killing them. Just kill them off, But I also feel like they didn't quite handle the plausibility of saving Ro's life. It just felt like they kind of brushed over the reason why she couldn't be saved. And, she could have driven the ship closer to the Titan, and they could have beamed her off. Like there was plenty of time, right? And I understand it doesn't matter. She just needs to die, and she needs to die in this way. So, but they need to work harder to make it impossible for her to live. Because I've always do this, like that always ruins it for me in these types of situations where the character realizes that there's no hope, and so they make a drastic decision for the betterment of the rest of the characters, that kind of thing. We've seen it before. But it's a tough rope to walk, because in this example, I didn't buy it. And so that took me out of it. I was just mad at this point. It's like, well, you have a way to do it. You could totally, like, you are in warp-capable ships, all of them. So they can go pretty fast. Just head on over there and we'll beam you out, and then we can autopilot the shuttle away from the ship, right?
Right.
And by the way,
the
ship, the shuttle ran in to the other ship and exploded, and that other ship was totally fine. Totally fine.
Right.
That their nacelle was broken. But so it's not like an explosion right next to the Titan would have put anybody else in danger. Right.
Right. I didn't think about that part. Like they did explain what the problem was. I felt, in a Star Trek-y way that satisfied me. But I didn't think about what you're just saying. Like the fact that it just damaged that like specific spot where it crashed, which granted, was the nacelle, which made the ship incapable to warp. But
yeah, it's sort of, I think it was the how it should have ended episode about Superman 2, where they're reenacting where Superman throws a cellophane thing at one of the bad guys of his Superman logo. And then the guy kind of shakes it off, and he's like, wow, that was a mild inconvenience.
Right.
That's kind of what it felt like.
No, I agree completely. And if she stayed outside of the ship's shields and close enough to the transporter area, like it should have been just fine. Yeah.
All of the shields were not up at that point, but they could have put them up.
Right.
It's pretty easy to put them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I understand she had to die. They needed to just kill her somehow. Just have it explode, though. Just don't do all... Like, they felt like they did too much work, but not enough. Like, either do no work and have it be just instantaneous, or do more work, because they did the in-between, which just pissed me off.
Right.
And I will say, there was absolutely no acknowledgement or aftermath of that moment of revelation between Jack and Picard in the previous episode, at the end where it seems like Picard is remembering that Jack was the person who asked the question about, do you want a family? In the baseball cap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
And he has that like kind of realization, and yeah, that was the end of it.
There was nothing.
Right?
Nothing. They even have Picard and Jack have a conversation in this episode where they seem to be cool now.
Yeah.
Picard's to Jack, maybe you should join Starfleet? I always have starflakes in the morning. Starflake. That sounds like should be a character on Lower Decks or something like that, right? Captain Starflake.
Yeah. Or on Futurama.
I never saw Futurama.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah. Although I know Futurama has had cameos by Star Trek people. I know that's happened.
Right.
But yeah, nothing from that. And it's kind of too bad. It's kind of an example of the writers don't talk to each other.
Right.
Or nor that they watch the show. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, is there something I'm missing? I don't think I missed anything. I think they needed to have a conversation between them, and that was it. And they couldn't go into it.
Well, yeah, but they still could have hinted at it.
Yeah, maybe they should be. Yeah, like you said, maybe Picard should say something like, "Hey, you look familiar, Jack. I remember that time in the whatever bar. It's the same bar."
Or just even like when the dust settles, I would like to talk to you.
Yeah, that didn't happen though. They didn't do that.
They didn't do that.
But by the way, so I have to say, in this episode, it was the most obvious to me of how great the set design is in this. That first shot in the episode where they're kind of pulling back from the view screen, and all of a sudden we're on the bridge, and all of a sudden you can see the captain's chair and everybody's working on the bridge, and it's just kind of we're working on the bridge scene. This is right before Jack starts murdering everybody.
Right.
And it just made me think, this looks so cool. This is what I want my bridges to look like. This is what I want Star Trek. Voyager was almost there. They almost got there, right? Where it's kind of dark. It's not just high key lighting everywhere where nobody has any shadows anywhere. It's just,
right.
Yeah. Whereas this, it was just well lit. It just looked amazing. And the screen panels look amazing. And it very much is akin to the main titles, which now happen at the end of the show. It's like the coolest main titles of any Star Trek show ever, where it's kind of this very abstract kind of view of what the consoles are doing and look like. And it just looks neat. And it feels very Star Trek. And I felt like it's kind of at its apex in terms of set design.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where like it pulls me out when it's bad. I don't notice when it's good.
Right. They've set you up in such a way where you're not looking for it. You're not looking to make fun of it.
Right.
Yeah. So that kind of struck me. So now we move on to Worf and Raffi, which I forgot about until just now when I read it in my notes. And I'm going to tell you why I forgot about it. It's not that they didn't have as much screen time. I think they probably had just as much screen time. The first thing I noticed was when they go to whatever place they're going to, and they're supposedly the alphas in this crime-ridden backlot street. Mm-hmm. They totally pull a total recall, which is the bad guys think that they're them, but they're just holograms, and they start shooting at the hologram, and nothing's there. But it doesn't work because they're way ahead of them.
Right, right, yeah.
Because evil Vulcan is way. I thought that was Ray Park, by the way.
Did you?
I thought it was Ray Park. It's not.
Okay.
I looked it up. I was like, ooh, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah. No, I thought it was. I thought I recognized him, but when I looked through his bio, I was like, yeah, no, I haven't seen any of these things.
Had a very interesting voice. I almost thought that it was somebody else's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like it was too present. It was kind of too elevated to be real. But Who knows? Anyway, I want to know how the Vulcans knew that they were doing the total recall thing. How would they know that? And even if they were to recognize that she was wearing the hollow emitter thing, they wouldn't just be able to find Raffi somewhere. Would they? It just felt very convenient that they were outwitted by the evil Vulcan. guy.
Right.
You know, it
right.
just felt very convenient. There's like, and Worf is like, oh, damn it. I thought that was so smart. We were so smart. And he was even bragging a little bit. Worf taunted the guy. He's like, we have the upper hand. It's like, do you?
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, that was the most substantive thing that happened on the Worf side of the whatever, not B plot, but Worf plot, right? Worf Rafi plot. Because really what happens in all of their, the whole episode's arc of plotline, tell me what happens. Nothing.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
What information do they have? Really? They know that it was stolen and that they got the thing to break into the Daystrom Institute.
Yes.
It took that long to get. And it wasn't even interesting business. It was them being held at gunpoint for most of it, or them walking.
Right. Well, and even them fighting. Like, it was a very quick fight, and then, Worf got better.
Yeah. I thought that they were banking on Worf having double organs.
Uh-huh.
That he was going to come alive again. And it's like, well, they can't have killed Worf now. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And why couldn't it have been Raffi?
Well, and I did like that the Vulcan, it was like, he said something along the lines of giving you the plans would be the most logical.
Right. Yeah, I like that too. I felt like he was a little too fabulous of a villain to be an evil Vulcan. Normally evil Vulcans are just very stoic, but they look mean.
Right.
And they kind of just say the truth,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the charm of an evil Vulcan. But this guy was supposed to be like a mobster Vulcan.
Right.
But they didn't lean into it. I wanted to lean into that a little bit more. Because all Vulcans are super dry, right? And this guy wasn't dry. He was kind of hamming it up a little bit. And you want to ham it up with how stilted his logic is, right? Because logic can sometimes be subjective.
Oh, sure.
So why not make his views more extreme and satisfy why they're logical to us? Like, give us the A, B, and C of why he's thinking that. This super extreme thing, like why they should let them both fight to the death. Tell us why it makes the most sense. Right. Kind of like the Joker, right? When you listen to the Joker, at least in the Nolan films, because I am not Batman literate, but one thing they did was they made his views seem plausible or acceptable. It's like, oh, that makes sense. I can see why someone might think that. It's crazy, but I buy the crazy. It's not just random.
Right.
That was cool. I thought it was neat. They could have done, I'm just saying they could have done more. I thought they had room. They had some headroom to be a little bit more fun with it.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And make it Ray Park. That'd have been fine too. Do a roundhouse kick a couple times,
Right.
By the way, all Vulcans are like super strong. I think that Vulcans are even stronger than Klingons, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I mean, yes, they are super strong. I don't know how they relate to Klingons. But the other thing, too, is, like, if you have the upper hand, the way he was holding him and the fact that he had a knife to his neck, like, it might have just been logical to not fight back given that death was on the line.
Right. Just saying there are, like, a lot of Vulcans around there. And we've never seen a Klingon, like, lift somebody up by their neck and then throw them across the room like we've seen Vulcans do and Romulans. So I wonder, can somebody answer that question? I know we can't. It's not rhetorical. Send us an email and answer the question. Are Romulans / Vulcans stronger than who?
Klingons.
Klingons, yeah.
Well, and why do you know that?
Because you're a nerd. That was a test. You failed.
That's not what I mean. I mean, what canon source is there? Man.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about this last episode. This idea that someone in a group, whatever that group happens to be, whether it's a crew or blah, 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 where something is wrong with them. and they're keeping it to themselves. And it's a trope, it's a cliche that they're, for some reason, keeping it to themselves because of reasons. And it makes no sense why. It's just something the audience knows and the character knows, but everybody else doesn't know. And we're waiting for the other characters to catch up, right?
Yes.
I hate it. I hate it. And Jack seems to be doing it, right? Until the end of this episode where he's kind of telling his mommy, that something's wrong with him, which I feel like is a grand, vast overstatement, right? Or understatement. It's an understatement or an overstatement, depending on, what he normally comes to his mommy with. But I felt like you should have been saying something a long time ago, right? And we get the impression that there's something in his past that caused this, that this just isn't an affliction of some kind.
Yes.
Yeah. So he should be telling people about, like, he's endangering, obviously, everybody, right? Because he's having these visions of just murder.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it was her telling him that he'd just done this before, or if it was just, that it's his mommy, and so he knows that he can share with her. But it does make sense to not share with the people who are trying to get him off the ship. Like,
no, tell your mom, right?
Well, yeah,
tell the doctor who can scan you and shit.
Right. And so I liked the fact that he kind of waited until everyone was out. I didn't like that she had to do any kind of probing or prodding about it. But, you're right that he shouldn't have kept it from her. But I did like that he ultimately didn't keep it from her. Gripping the leg of the chair until his knuckles are white. And he's like, everything's fine.
It's just sawdust at the end of the scene. Right. Yeah, but all in all, like, this was a good episode. They did a really good job forwarding. I'm talking about the Picard stuff, the Worf stuff. That could have been one scene. Everything that they accomplished, one scene. But all the Picard stuff, the Picard side of it, was entertaining. Yes, they did a great job with the plot. I'm very curious to see what's happening, where it's going. They are now fugitives. They've
according to Starfleet, yeah.
They've conscripted Captain Dickhead to go on the ride with them. The ride of fugitism.
Right. No. I was trying to just remember about how he handled it.
They kind of bullied him into it.
They kind of did, but he also kind of recognized, that this was strange for Starfleet to be doing this.
Yeah. It was odd, but I think it caught everybody by surprise. That's what's kind of nice about this plot line, is it's out of nowhere. It's not just related to the Vadic stuff, at least as far as we know. Right. So, I can't imagine. Maybe it is. Maybe the person that Vadic was talking to the last time we saw her, that very Star Warsian character on her hologram Instagram, whatever it is. Whatever that was, maybe it's related. It must be, right? Why would it be two unrelated things? But it doesn't, they're disconnected right now. They're just, there's two threats, Vadic and this new grander threat of the Starfleet or the Federation being infiltrated by shapeshifters. Right. Yeah. I just thought it was good. It makes me want to keep watching. So bravo, Picard.
Yeah. It's nice that we are actively engaged and not doing this to finish it out. Yeah.
We're not hate watching, at least not yet.
Right.
And
not
half
anymore.
the crew isn't even in the show yet. I'm very surprised.
I did like it. It didn't feel too contrived that Ro was the one doing the investigation, and she found that it was much bigger. And I think she talked about how she does have a few people that she can trust. And the timing was a little bit convenient that they just happened to plug it in and they got a phone call. Yeah. But it worked that, like, they were with Ro and she died and they had her information, and Worf was one of her contacts. Like, I felt like all of that worked.
Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah. I'm excited to see what happens next. Whether or not Worf chooses to change clothes. or keeps the same clothes on, you know?
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how a pacifist has so many weapons. I do want to say
and
that.
practices so many death skills.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of secret ninjas in Star Trek these days. We got Worf, we got Jack, we got La'an, and the Doctor from Strange New Worlds, who has a name that no one knows.
Right.
Okay. Well, was this a Star Trek or a proper Star Trek episode? I don't know if there's a moral dilemma here. Really?
I mean, you could say that Captain Dickhead kind of faces one a little bit about whether or not he should trust Starfleet or trust what he's seeing.
I mean, it was a 3.5 second dilemma.
Right, but leading up to this, he was trusting Starfleet to do the right thing.
I suppose his arc has been one giant dilemma of, do I trust these people I don't like and have a philosophical difference with?
Yeah.
Or not. So, okay, we'll let it slide because this is our favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
We're gonna give it the.
And I do like that our last episode was our favorite episode so far, which kind of does imply an upward trajectory. So this does make me optimistic for the rest of the season.
It just makes me think that next episode's going to be terrible. That's all that makes me think.
Well, our next episode is going to be Strange New World, so we'll find out then.
Right, I guess that's
find out in 2 weeks. Going back to what we used to do way back in the day. So the next episode we're watching is episode 5 of Strange New Worlds of season 2. And it's charades. I was going to say Strange New World. Shuttle accident leads to Spock's Vulcan DNA being removed by aliens, making him fully human and completely unprepared to face T'Pring's family during an important ceremonial dinner.
Wow. This feels like a Voyager episode.
Right? It also kind of feels like that episode where T'Pring and Spock switched bodies.
Yep.
And they were forced into situations, yeah.
This feels like isn't Spock funny when he's not a Vulcan type of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll see. Another comedy episodes. I feel like when they try and do outward comedy, it's just never funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But we'll find out. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Since so many have been enjoyable, I am happy to give it the benefit of the doubt. So I've been Jonathan.
And I've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that. A little surprise for next episode.